Welcome back to the Blade Lab. In the previous two videos I did, we were looking at identical twins knives and examining the effect of edge angle on edge retention. The first one was Spyderco Tenacious in CPM M4. Second one was Victorinox 6-inch kitchen utility knives. This time I don't have the luxury of having two identical knives, but I have, instead of two identical twins, I actually have two, I'll call them paternal twins. So one of them is a Spyderco Stretch 2, and the other one is a Spyderco Endela, and these are both in K390 steel. They are both full flat ground blades. They have the same blade stock, which is, I believe, it's something like 2.9 millimeters or 0.1125 inches. So, all things being equal, they should perform pretty much equivalently. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to test hardness, so I don't know exactly what the HRC is on these particular blades. I think that Spyderco tends to run their K390 in the 63, 64 Rockwell range. So that is one factor that I can't control for. Just keep that in mind. So what we're looking at here now is, instead of altering the edge angle and looking at blade performance, the main difference in these two blades is that one of them has been, the Spyderco Stretch has been reground, and reground in a amazing way, good or bad, depends on your perspective. But I actually purchased this on the secondary market from somebody who did the regrind himself, and he said he was moving it along because he reground it too thin, and he's probably right. But I thought it was interesting to see what it did. I'm going to insert the footage, but believe it or not, these are both at 15 degrees behind the edge. I mean, per side in terms of sharpening. But believe it or not, I've already put two, I can't remember, maybe 3 edges on this knife, and it is still about 4 to 4.5 thousandths of an inch behind the edge. Just ridiculously thin. This Endela, I also purchased on the secondary market, I believe. It had been sharpened, probably multiple times before I purchased it. I've put 2 or 3 edges on it, and it's now at about, at 15 degrees, it's about 0.195 inches behind the edge, which is still, it's a reasonable thickness behind the edge. It's, if I was to purchase a new knife and it was that thick behind the edge, I'd be a little disappointed. I typically like my new knives to come in, between 0.1 and 0.15, just because I like to use lower angles and I don't want the bevels to get too huge. But, so, I don't know if it's coming up on the camera, if you can see sort of basically the thickness of the edge bevel. I'm sure it will show at some point, as compared to the, again, absolutely ridiculous Spyderco Stretch here, which at 15 degrees, the edge bevel is still barely visible. So, what would we expect? You would expect that the super thin edge is not going to be particularly stable. You would expect chipping, maybe rolling, and we're going to do a little bit of testing on edge stability, but the main focus is going to be just to see what effect, if any, it has on edge retention. So if you're doing light duty, if you're just opening packages, cutting cardboard, cutting food occasionally, what's the effect on that? In terms of cutting ability, it's common knowledge, I would say, something that should be tested, because we don't trust common knowledge. But anyway, you would expect thinner behind the edge knives to cut better, all else being equal. It's just there's less material, blade material going through the material that you're cutting, should reduce friction. I will link it in the description below, but there's a knife maker, and his name is escaping me. I think it's his Twitter his YouTube name, I think, is Outdoors55, maybe. He's, very entertaining, informative channel. He's a knife maker himself, and he does a lot of different kinds of testing. He's got some good microscope equipment to look at the edges, etc., etc. But anyway, just yesterday he was doing an experiment cutting with a knife that was a little thicker behind the edge than this one, I believe, but that had absolutely no edge. It had basically a 90-degree edge bevel, or no edge bevel, and he demonstrated that it still cut perfectly fine in terms of cutting soft sort of food items, kitchen stuff, and that just demonstrating that it is geometry that cuts and not necessarily the most acute angle. So with that out of the way, let's get back to doing some actual cutting. Going to be doing the same thing that I did in the previous tests, doing 14 cuts of 1/2 inch manila rope with each blade, and then cutting up some cardboard. So let's start with the Endela, the one that's roughly 20 thousandths behind the edge. Check my camera here. So yeah, I'm just going to do 14 cuts. I'll be cutting sort of in this area, so we'll know where to test later. And here we go. So 1, 2. By the way, this is just got this cutting board. It's a polyurethane OXO cutting board. So take with that. Make of that what you will. Shit, was that 3? I think that was 3. Take a little break. 3. Okay, so there's another YouTuber in person in the sharpening community who unfortunately passed away last year or shortly before that, named Vadim Krychek of Knife Grinders Australia. Did some fantastic testing, especially if you're in the Tormek sharpening community, but things that apply universally as well. But he also tested cutting boards, and what he found was, contrary to popular belief, that the polyurethane boards actually did the least damage. In fact, in some cases, actually improved edge acuity as compared to your end grain this and your bamboo and blah blah blah. So that was interesting, and if I can find it, I'll put a link to that test too. Caveat: he was testing impact on the cutting boards as opposed to abrasion. So, and this of course is more abrasion than impact, so I don't know what the effect of that is. Anyway, 4, 5. Come on now. Jesus. 6. I'll put a little more ass behind it. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right. Gotta work on my technique there. So that is the 20 degree, or a 20 thousandths edge. And now for the redonkulous 4.5 thousandths edge. 1, Oh my God, that's a laser. 2, 3, 4. I'm going to try not to drag it sideways on the board. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you can see it's still cutting quite well. And now we're going to move on to the cardboard section of our test. Got to run and grab a piece. So I've been using this without going into it again, driving you all nuts. This is some Amazon sort of backing board type cardboard. Very thin, very dense, hard to cut. So I'm going to, I have, what I happen to be carrying today is this Arcona Buren knife. So I'm going to use this to cut it in half and then do half with each of the knives that we're actually testing. So there's one, roughly equal. I'm going to do 10 cuts with each knife. Here is this, might have to, it's kind of hard to get this on the camera. Let me back it out a little bit. Okay. So this is the Endela at 20 thou behind the edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can do 5. Okay. And the stretch 2. Is this on the screen at all? There we are. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okie dokie. So let's grab the best tester and see what happened. Oh, all right. I neglected to mention that I had previously tested the edges before I started. They were both in the 90 best range. The Endela was ever so slightly sharper. It was, maybe, but they were within 5 best points of each other. So I don't want to bore you by testing that on camera. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to be testing this. We're cutting, basically between here and here. So I'll test it right in the middle, and I'll do a couple tests, 2 or 3, just to see if we could get an accurate result. So I am going slowly, of course. I don't know if you can, I'll show you the result. That's 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 45, 50, 65, 70, 85, 90, 105, 110, 20, 130, 145, 175. You can probably see that. So that's about what I would have expected. Restring it, do another test. I hadn't mentioned previously, but I suppose I should. You can see it right there on the deck. This is the PT 50B model tester. This one only measures to within 5 grams, whereas there's a more expensive one that measures to within 1 gram. To me, the test itself is not that precise, so I think that 5 is probably fine, because you're going to just get variation anyway based upon what part of the blade you test and your speed and the tightness of the filament. So I think 5 grams is a reasonable variation. I mean, a built-in sort of whatever you call it. Anyway, let me just test this. So it's 175 again. I think that was what I got the first time, right? So that is pretty consistent. 175 for the Endela, 20 thou behind the edge. Let's now test the stretch 2 at 4.5 thousandths behind the edge. Maybe we will, after this, do a little impact testing, and then maybe we'll put this. I've got a cheap USB microscope, but it does an okay job of showing you what the edge looks like up close. So maybe we'll look at them afterwards. So again, I'm testing. I'm going to move this up a little bit. It's kind of hard to test that close to the edge, but I'm going to be testing in this area. So sorry for going so slowly, but that's the only way to get a really accurate result with this thing. $135. So that is a fair bit better than the 175 with the Endela. Do one more test just to check it. I would expect that there might be more variation with the with this one, because it is so dastardly thin behind the edge. And 155. So 135, 155, call that an average of 145 with the ultra thin behind the edge knife. Oh, these are not on the camera. So yeah, what I said, 145 average for the stretch 2 at 4.5 thou behind the edge. Zoom in again. And 175 for the Endela at just under 20,000 behind the edge. Interesting, I think. I was almost expecting the thicker behind the edge knife to do better, just because although I like thin behind the edge knives, this one is so extreme. I kind of expected it to not hold up, but K390 is a great steel, so it's not a tough steel, but it's a tough steel for a high edge retention steel. Would have to look on Laren Thomas's chart at Knife Nerd's website, but he has a particular article. I'll again try to remember to link it below, where he ranks dozens and dozens of different steels in terms of wear resistance, edge resistance, toughness, and corrosion resistance. And K390, again, it's a pretty good edge retention steel. It's got a pretty good vanadium carbide content, and for that group of steels, it's tougher than most of them. but not tough compared to, low vanadium carbide content steels. Whew, okay. So let's do one more thing. Let's, because based upon my other tests, I've received some criticism from people saying, well, yeah, but you're not testing, you're only testing edge retention. That's only one thing, and you also have to take into account impact resistance. And yeah, I know that. I was only testing one thing so far. And this is not going to be at all a scientific impact test. Dr. Thomas has done some scientific tests using a brass rod, at a fixed or on a scale of impact, and to see what the effect was, and yada yada. This is not going to be that. This is going to be whacking a piece of oak. This is actually just a strop on pretty hard oak. I think it's oak. So I'm just gonna whack the edges into the corner of this thing in that roughly the same area, so we can go back and check and see what it looks like. Oh wait, before we do that, let me do another. Let's do a paper cut test just to see, so we can see what the effect of the impact is. So I'm going to again start out with, this is a page from a Uline catalog, my preferred paper for cut tests, but it's a great paper for knives that are sharp. So if you're trying to determine whether it's sharp or really sharp, not such a good paper for knives if you're testing them to see if they're just like a working edge or pretty sharp, because it tends to collapse when you do that. Anyway, so this is the stretch 2. I'm just going to see what we can do. Well, I didn't even cut back there. I don't think. All right. So, yeah, it's already sort of struggling with that. I don't know why. All right, it gets through there once you get it started. It's I don't know why it's having such trouble starting, but okay. So there's a little hang up here. But it does get through there. It cuts reasonably well. So let's try the Endela. There's a definite hang up there. Start lower. Also cuts pretty well, There's a little. Part of the problem with this paper is, as soon as it starts to fold over, then it becomes not a good test of cutting, and it's just a function of the paper that it's hard to cut when it's folded over. So I'm going to do another test with copy paper. This is the Endela. And because I'm under the camera, I sort of have to fold the paper, which is not great either. But so, copy paper. There's a little catch right towards the area we were cutting in, like right there. But not bad. I mean, still cut some curlies. Let's try the stretch. Same thing. Could we cut a donut? Let's see. No, we can't quite cut a circle in it. But you almost can. There we go. Okay, so paper cut wise, these knives still cut paper, right? They would still be sharp. I bet they would still shave. Yeah, well, that would be a bad bet. No, they do. Can you see that? Maybe, maybe not. So they're still sharp. So where were we? Okay, impact testing. Let me see if I can get this here on the camera more. So this is going to be the Endela. I'm going to go up in this area here. See where I'm hitting? And I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, pretty good wax. I'm going to do the same thing with the stretch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. Let's try this again with the paper. This is the stretch. Still cuts pretty cleanly, huh? That is shocking to me, actually. I did not expect that. And also cuts pretty cleanly. Wow, okay. I don't know how, I suspect they wouldn't do as well with brass, but just whacking into pretty hard wood, they do a pretty decent job. So let me see now if we can get a picture of the edges on this El Cheapo Amazon microscope. I might have to adjust my camera. This thing can take pictures, but it's a really low quality camera. I think the screen actually ends up looking better than the photos you take with it. So can y'all see that? I think you can. So this is the ultra thin edge. I should clean it off a little bit. Some of this is just going to be schmutz on the edge of the knife. All right. So, oh, tipped over. So I mean, look at that. That is freaking impressive to me. That edge is still pretty damn clean. I don't see. I don't see any chips in it. I don't see any rolling. And this is pretty good magnification here. It's not a scanning electron microscope, but I don't happen to have one of them handy, so yeah. I mean, that's wow. I'm shocked and impressed. I don't feel any chips in it either, just with on my fingernail. So let's look at the Endela. This is the bigger bevel, which you will see. So you see how wide that bevel is compared to the other one. Let's clean it off too. And yeah, it's my finger spooge on there, but it's again also very clean. We haven't done like a huge amount of work with this thing. It's kind of simulating kind of light duty EDC work is what these tests are, frankly. But you can see, I think this one has probably been sort of stropped more than the other one. So you can see some a little bit of rounding towards the edge. Is that a little bit of damage? Nope. Maybe a micro chip, but I don't think so. Over here, yeah, maybe. Could just be dust again. All right, so pretty damn clean. So kudos to Spyderco for their fantastic K390 steel. And this is only going to encourage me to push for edges that are thinner behind the edge, especially with high quality steel. In the future, we will be doing some more testing. I might have to get something reground to get close to this edge. But I had some other super thin knives, actually. I've got in M39. And my camera cut out again. So I'm just going to wrap this up by saying that I intend to do more testing. I'm going to be testing the effect of different edge angles on edge retention, and also the effect of thinness behind the edge on edge retention. And for both of them, we will also be testing stability and see what the effect of these different variables is. So, hope you enjoyed the tests. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.